In a world of fake news, it's no wonder that gullible people take hoaxes and run with them, often misleading others on the path of ignorance. Oftentimes, instances are so odd that it doesn't seem like it could have an explanation. Sometimes, people simply want a mystery so much that they avoid being informed at all costs. What's up guys, it's Freaky Informer, and this week we're covering more solved cases. This video did really well, it got quite a few views, and I'm really excited to have another one going. If you haven't seen the first one, you can catch it on the little tag appearing on screen right now. Part 1 covered Eliza Lamb, Forrest Fenn's treasure, the Dana Point Jane Doe, the 2001 anthrax attacks, and the face on Mars. Are you ready for 5 fresh cases of unsolved mysteries that you may not have known are solved? Starting off strong, we have the case of the Hook Island sea monster. As you can tell from the picture, this case is fairly old. If there were any less pixels in this picture, it would be one-dimensional, I swear. On the 12th of December 1964, Robert Lesurec captured photos of what appeared to be an odd creature with the body of an eel and the head of a snake. These pictures were taken at Hook Island, Queensland, Australia, giving the creature its name. This monster has been a staple of hundreds of books and studies of cryptozoology since the photographs were published in 1965, with numerous attempts at research made along the coast in an attempt to observe the creature in its natural habitat. Unfortunately, no one will ever be able to view the Hook Island sea monster in its natural habitat for one simple reason. The cryptid's documentation was a hoax. In July of 2020, Dr. Darren Naish, a paleontologist, debunked the creature's existence completely. He went into a lot more detail than I will, but I'll simply summarize his points. Firstly, the monster's anatomy made absolutely no sense for its likeliest kingdom of animal. The eyes, which are the white dots in the picture, were much too high and forward-facing. If the creature were, in fact, real, its eyes would either be closer to the snout and on either side of its head, like a common eel. However, one thing about the images really stood out. What appeared to be sand was covering over part of the Hook Island sea monster's snout. Naish deduced that since the sand didn't move in several pictures, the creature was most likely a black tarp that was wrapped and filled with sand. If all of this evidence isn't enough, Lesurec, the original photographer, attempted to sell the photos to a newspaper long before he actually had them published. On top of that, long before the trip, the photographer told friends in France that he was about to go away and make a lot of money from something which involved a sea serpent. Lesurec left France in debt to some shady characters and has since disappeared. Seemingly he doesn't want to be found, which could easily be an admission of fraud. Furthermore, he is wanted by Interpol, although it is not clear why. Although this evidence could easily be considered shoddy, I believe that Lesurec hasn't come forward because he himself knows that he is a fraud. Our next solved case begins in the summer of 1998. Kamiyah Mobley was only 8 hours old when she was snatched by an individual imitating a nurse. This woman had helped Kamiyah's mother after the birth, even sit and have a conversation with the new mom. The only leads they had on that fateful day were a vague description and a theory. Kamiyah Mobley's abductor wore a blue floral smock dress with green scrub pants. She also wore glasses and a wig and was described as being 25 to 35 years old. It wasn't until 2017 that reported rare birthmarks and an umbilical hernia led to a series of tips from people close to a 19-year-old girl by the name of Alexis. A swab was taken from the girl, and it was a perfect match to a swab taken from baby Mobley. In February of 2018, Gloria Williams pleaded guilty to the act of kidnapping. She had been 33 when she snatched Kamiyah and was already the mother of 2 other children who she raised the girl alongside. Williams forged documents to give the Mobley girl a new identity. It is popularly believed that Williams took Kamiyah because of recent stresses in her life. She had been in an abusive relationship in 1998, and a week prior to the abduction miscarried the child she had hoped to bring into this world. Williams is set for release on the 9th of July 2034. Kamiyah visits her often, still citing her as her mother, while simultaneously keeping a relationship with her biological family. On to a much older case. How far would you go to gain clout and profit based on beliefs you don't agree with? I'm not talking about rainbow capitalism here. George Hull, in October 1869, paid 2 excavators to dig out an area for a well. What diggers found came as a shock. Unearthed from the ground was what was apparently a giant. The men digging the well were mystified and immediately informed Hull. Seemingly shocked and always happy to seek profit, Hull erected a tent to display the giant, charging people $5 in today's money for a glimpse of the huge form. After a week of huge business, the man doubled the cost of entry. It later came to be known that Hull decided to create the elaborate hoax of the Cardiff Giant after a disagreement with an acquaintance that he found to be too religious to be rational. The atheistic man spent $50,500 in today's money excavating and paying a sculptor to secretly carve the giant, going so far as to add pores to the details for added authenticity. After making serious profit from swindling the public and selling the statue to a syndicate, a court ruled the Cardiff Giant to be a fake, and Hull confessed to this in December of 1869. In those 2 months, Hull made almost $500,000 in profit, and the Cardiff Giant went down in history. Now for our 4th case of the day. Mary McLaughlin, a 58-year-old mother of 11, was brutally murdered in her home on the 26th of September 1984. The woman's body wasn't discovered until the 2nd of October that same year. She had been strangled with the cord of her own dressing gown. Being 1984, forensic science was not nearly as advanced as it is today, and the case went cold. Thankfully for the victim and her family, 37 years after the murder, there was an advancement in the case. In November of 2019, the Police Service of Scotland officially decided to untie the knot of the murder weapon. This yielded DNA evidence which led them on the trail of a previously convicted rapist named Graham McGill. He had murdered McLaughlin while on temporary release from prison. Other DNA evidence had been found on a cigarette butt as well as the victim's personal effects. McGill's ex-wife testified that she had been told of the murder but had had her life threatened in the case that she told anyone. Graham McGill was sentenced to a minimum of 14 years in prison, granting Mary's family closure. McGill will be locked up until 2033 when he will be 71 years of age. Our last solved mystery today is all about the Fiji Mermaid. In 1822, an American sea captain by the name of Samuel Barrett Eads was sailing the Japanese coast when he made contact with a group of fishermen. They had a proposition. They would sell him a real mermaid for $6,000. Eads quickly accepted the offer, paying the money from the ship's expense account. The mermaid was an ugly, dried-up, black-looking, diminutive specimen about 3 foot long. Its mouth was open, its tail turned over, and its arms thrown up, giving it the appearance of having died in great agony. This was especially interesting, considering how the majority of mermaid depictions are human-sized and ethereally beautiful. Of course, after a thorough examination by the Museum of Natural History, the Fiji Mermaid was declared a fake. The 3-foot-long creature was actually a juvenile monkey's torso and head sewn onto the back end of a fish. The fishermen had taken Samuel Barrett Eads for a fool, essentially calling him out of $6,000. Soon after its discovery, the false cryptid was never seen again, presumably destroyed in a fire that claimed a substantial amount of the owner's collection of oddities. The fake Fiji Mermaid would never be seen again. That's it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. I tried to put a good mix of cases to keep it interesting. As always, please check out the links in the description. The charity is Planting Peace, and they're raising money to put the colour back into the Equality House. The petition is to put an end to conversion therapy in the UK. It's a first world country, for Christ's sake. This shit should be illegal, honestly. Ridiculous. You can also find my Discord server link in the description, where you can come keep up with all things Freaky Informer. Stay freaky, stay informed. It may save your life.